tonight. We're going to focus this week on passing the guard. We're focusing kind of in two different sections in this one-on-one program of kind of like top position, bottom position, right? So we've worked the last few weeks on the bottom position. So we've worked on attacking with the guard, we've worked on defending the guard, framing, guard retention, and now we're going to shift gears and start to work from the top position. So we're going to be focusing this week on passing the guard. Passing the guard is, we always preface, whenever we do passing techniques, we always preface with guard passing is the most complicated and difficult skill set in jiu-jitsu. And I say that not to intimidate you, but just to give you kind of like a preface of there's a lot of technique that goes into passing the guard, so it's not something that we're going to immediately start to get good at. It takes years of dedicated practice to get good at passing the guard. The reason that it's so difficult is because we are faced or challenged with passing all of their opponent's limbs while our opponent is a very strong position. A leg pressing position is a very difficult thing to get around. So we're going to work tonight by passing and breaking open the closed guard. Since we've worked so much on attacking with the closed guard, let's talk about how to deal with that. Now, before we do, I'd like to talk about some important concepts when it comes to passing. So first things first, I want us to focus on our intensity when it comes to passing. Now, passing the guard is, like I said, a very challenging concept, and that's good, right? Challenging doesn't have to be a bad thing. I think of it almost like solving a puzzle when you're trying to pass a good guard. Now, because of that, we want to try to focus on not throwing our body onto our opponent and just throwing our weight all over the place. We want to focus on moving ourselves around our opponent, accessing levers on our opponent's body, and then pointing their guard away from us so that we can box their hips in. Okay, so a lot of times in the beginning, beginners tend to just use their body weight to just throw themselves onto their partner, which it just is going to end up in someone getting hurt. Probably the bottom person because they have just weight, sheer weight falling on top of them. But believe it or not, the top person can also get injured a lot as well. We've seen many times where someone just throws their body weight forward, and because our bottom partner maybe has a good knee-elbow connection, they just land perfectly wrong on a knee and they can crack a rib. So focus on dialing your intensity in the right way, okay? Now, we're going to start tonight by just kind of warming up with opening the closed guard. This is a very important technique, and it's something that you're going to need to know how to do with confidence. So let's work a lot on that today and this week. So coach is going to start in a closed guard. So first things first, if you find yourself here in the closed guard, we're going to basically just do all of the opposite stuff that we were doing over the last couple weeks. So over the last couple weeks, we were talking about what to do from the bottom, breaking their posture, breaking their alignment, disrupting the structure of their body, attacking sweeps and submissions. We want to do all the opposite. We want to maintain our posture, maintain our structure, defend submissions, defend sweeps. Easier said than done. The closed guard is, for all intents and purposes, this is a dominant position for the bottom person. This clamp that they have around my body is extremely powerful. So I need to be careful with how I approach getting out of here. That's where, again, that intensity concept comes in. If I just start freaking out and like moving around, you're just feeding into the quicksand, right? This is like I'm in quicksand right now. Relax, stay calm, and then we're going to learn to break out of this. I'll demonstrate how we're going to open the closed guard first, and then we'll move on from there, okay? Here we go. So I've opened the closed guard, also known as breaking the closed guard, and I've gotten myself to a safe position to pass from. I can't pass if I'm inside of his closed guard. It's just impossible. I can't disintegrate his bones. But now that I'm on my feet, I can pass and move around from side to side. We're so insistent on passing from the feet because passing on the knees, it's a very old school approach to passing. It's from a time where pressure was the most important thing. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with passing from the knees. And when I say passing from the knees, that just means I'm down here like this, and I'm trying to pass his guard and get around his legs. But some of the problems that you'll encounter are, first of all, the closed guard. When I'm sitting on my knees, he can very easily just close me up in his guard, and now it's again, I'm like in that quicksand. If you need to be on your knees, just try to stay in what we call a combat base. So I have one knee up in between his legs and one knee down. The reason I would do this is because now my knee acts like a wedge. So even if he tries to close his guard, it's hard to do because now my body is much wider than it is normally. I can then also start to cut this knee over and just immediately start passing. We never sit on both of our knees to pass. All right, if I don't have his legs under my control, sitting here like this, you're just asking to get wrapped up in the closed guard. So that's why we want to start to pass from our feet. When we're on our feet, we have gravity helping us pass. We have the mobility of being on our legs. I always ask people, would you rather run a race on your knees or on your feet? And it's always on your feet, right? Because you're more mobile. So let's talk about how we're going to break the closed guard today. We're going to start off by maintaining our alignment, base, posture, structure. So first comes posture. His goal in the closed guard is to break me down so I'm here. So my goal is the opposite. I want to maintain the integrity of my spinal column. So my head is up, and to help me maintain this position, I'm going to utilize proper structure with my arms. So my elbows are tucked in like T-Rex arms. My hands are going to be grabbing his belt, just like this. This is going to act like structure or like scaffolding of a building. So even if he does have some sort of collar grip, when he pulls me down, I can help keep myself rigid. If I don't have anything, he can pull me down very easily, right? Because he has that strong rowing motion that we've been working so much on. So my hands will be on his belt, my elbows are tucked in. You can have your thumbs over top or underneath. It doesn't really matter too much. Some people will tell you if you put your thumbs under, you can get wrist locked. Just if your partner starts to bend your wrists awkwardly, just take your hands off, right? So just think, if you want to keep your thumbs over, that's fine. I generally just put my thumbs under. Now, once I'm here, I'm gonna need to stand up. Here comes some of the difficulties of breaking open the closed guard. When I go to stand up, I need to take my time, one leg at a time. I need, though, to maintain my alignment the whole time. If I stand up by leaning forward, now he can start to just pull me down, right? Even if I have my hands on his belt, if I'm leaning forward like this, he can just pull me down, and now I'm not going anywhere. So I need to stand up while keeping my back straight. So we're gonna do, I call it a sumo get up, but it's a get up with one leg at a time. And I'll show it from the back so that you can see how I do it. But I'm gonna step up with one leg here, and now I'm gonna step up with the other leg here, okay? Now that I'm standing on my feet, the keen of you will say, well, what about that double ankle sweep we just did last week, right? They can just grab your ankles and sweep you, and you're not wrong. That is one of the difficulties of breaking open the closed guard. You see how adept we've become with the position. Now, we have a couple of safety protocols that we can utilize to help us not get swept from here. Number one are our knees. I'm keeping my knees pinched against the sides of his hip bones. This does two things. This helps me keep his hips off the ground. So right now, my knees are basically like a shelf that his hips are kind of sitting on. So that makes it harder for him to hip drop his hips, right? Because remember, if he wants to sweep me, he needs to drop his hips to the mat and then do the double ankle sweep. So if I put like a chair underneath his butt, his hips can't go anywhere. Now, the other reason we keep our knees pinched together is because if my knees are wide open like this, now it's very easy for him to start to externally rotate my knees and put me on my butt. Ugh. Right? I didn't even mean to fall, and I fell. So let's make sure when you stand up, come up to your feet, and then pinch your knees together. However, there's one more thing that we need to have to help us keep their hips under control, and that's gonna be the belt grip. This is one reason that we're gonna be grabbing the belt. As I stand, I'm pulling his hips up. So it's like I'm doing a deadlift. Now, I don't really know how to do a deadlift very well, but I do know that you wanna lift with your legs, not with your back. So again, I'm not doing this. My back is straight and I'm pulling. So I'm basically holding his hips up in the air. So coach, go ahead and drop your hips. So now his hips can't go to the floor in order to sweep me. Now, because we have this relatively safe position, obviously don't dawdle here for too long because they can still sweep you. So we have a small window of opportunity. I'm gonna let go with one hand, and that hand is gonna go to the inside of his knee pit. I'm going to start to push this knee down towards that foot. And as I do this, look how I straighten my arm and I utilize a strong frame here to push. As I'm pushing down, I don't wanna stay in between his knees for long. As soon as his guard is broken, I'm now going to back away and control his ankles. Notice how I'm in good posture here. I'm leaning over, okay? This would be good posture for passing because I'm allowing there to be more space for me to manipulate his legs. If I'm standing up tall like this, look at how awkward it is. It's so hard for me to move his legs around. So I'm here, there's this big canvas in front of me that I can now use to move his legs and of course pass the guard, which we will do next. Let's actually do that side view. Okay guys, so remember, take your time, be slow and methodical with your movement here. I need the bottom person to play the right role. Please try not to just open your guard and let your partner just stand up, right? What I mean is this. If the second he starts to feel any bit of pressure, his guard just opens, so. Well, now I don't really need to do that guard break. I can just back away and start passing. He basically did my job for me. I want the bottom person to try to keep the guard strong, but don't go to the extreme. Don't fight your partner and not let them break the guard open, right? We're just drilling right now. So he's gonna stay strong. As I stand up here, his guard is still closed. Now, once I break the guard open, same thing. Don't just let your legs go limp and just completely fall flat to the mat. Because now, what happened to his guard? It's just gone, right? So try to maintain a good knee-elbow connection. Remember how we were framing the guard a few weeks back? Go back to that open guard position here. So now I actually am faced with a guard that I'll need to pass. Let me show that get up very quickly. So to do a more efficient get up, it's gonna look like this. I stand up with one leg first, so if I need to, I can lean forward a little bit and get up onto my active toes here. That's gonna be a good platform that I can push off of. So I'm gonna push one leg up first. Notice how I'm sitting up, my hips are driving forward. Now to get up on this other leg, I'm gonna start to fold my knee out a little bit so I can push off the mat and then stand up here, okay? Now notice again, my knees are pinched. I'm holding his hips up, hand goes on the knee. Remember, you can grab the pants, that's fine, or you can just put your hand right in the leg. I start to straighten my arm, stiff arm it, down, back away, and finish on the feet. Okay, guys, so there's a lot that goes into breaking open the closed guard. It's a technique that you need to really focus on and be careful with, not because it's dangerous, but because you are in a very dangerous position, right? You're going to get swept or submitted if you make even a small mistake. So let's try just warming up with this, opening the closed guard, and then we'll add in a pass afterwards. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go. 1, 2. Just for clarity, there's 1,000 ways to break open a closed guard. This is just one of them. You know, we've looked at other variations in the past as well. We're just focusing here on kind of that concept of the hip control when we're standing up to help us defeat the double ankle sweep, because that is such a white belt killer, the double ankle sweep, right? It's a great sweep, but it's also really, we're very susceptible to it because you just don't have the proprioception that jiu-jitsu requires yet. So let's now move into a small, very easy guard pass. I'd like us to focus on the Toreando tonight. And then we're going to work next class on the bullfighter, on the leg drag. But I'd like to work on the Toreando because it's going to connect very nicely to this guard break we just did. If you're unfamiliar, Toreando is sometimes also called the bullfighter pass, Toreando being the Portuguese name for the pass. This is kind of like the leg drag. It's a very great concept of our overall passing concept, or example of that passing concept, which is leave your control to turn their guard away and allow us to box their hips in. So it's a very simple guard pass. I'd like to show it first and kind of show how it's going to work in conjunction with that closed guard break. So we'll start in the same position. Just a couple notes here, guys. So I said this to a couple groups. I don't really need to see what I'm doing, right? I know what I'm trying to do. I keep my eyes up, so that way I keep good posture, all right? If my head is up, it's harder for him to break my posture and pull me down. Another note that I had was if he has grips on my collars, you should probably break those before trying to stand up, right? Because even if he doesn't pull necessarily, as I stand up, this is like an anchor. It's going to keep my chest kind of in this bent over position. Now, I can still break the guard, but against a good guard player, they are still in a good spot. They can still sweep and submit you because you're bent over like this. So break the grip first, right? So if he's grabbing onto the collars, break the grips first. I don't care if he's holding my sleeve because I'm just connecting my hands to him. So I'm going to break the collar grip, and now look, I stand up without him touching me. Look, eyes are up, okay? I'm not leaning and looking at him. I don't need to see what I'm doing. As I come up, immediately my knees are pinched. I'm making sure that I'm holding his hips up nice and high. If he sits up with his chest, so we end up in this position, this is common against good guard players, don't worry. You can do the exact same guard break. Just put your hand on their knee and start to push. You may need to add in a couple of shakes, literally. Just start to shake your hips. But notice how I slowly put him down. One very important rule in jiu-jitsu is called slams. Slamming someone is where I take them, I lift them up off the ground, and then I slam their back on the mat. That's completely illegal. You will immediately get disqualified if that happens. So when I lift up and he comes up with me, I'll show you a very light slam. If I do this, boom, immediately disqualified, right? Because that's extremely dangerous. His head is unsupported. He's going to smack his head into the mat. So just remember, if you're here and they sit up with you, first of all, Guard player, you also need to be responsible for the slam, okay? You're playing a bit of a risky battle here by sitting up like this, but we're just gonna grab the knee all the same. If I really need to get him off me, I'm just gonna start to shake as I push. Now I'm here. Now, I don't recommend us working that variation, but I just wanted to talk about it because you'll see it happen. Let's go back to the original version. So again, I keep my eyes up. My collars are clear. I'm gonna start to stand up. 1, 2. I'm gonna start to push this knee down. Now again, I can do either side, okay? Watch, as I break this knee here, and I start to back up, when I push this knee down to the mat, this is opening up an opportunity for our Toreando pass. Let me show what that will look like. And now I've done my Toreando pass, and I've gotten into a leg drag style position to finish. Now, what is the Toreando pass? Well, let me show that pass isolated. There's many different grips for the Toreando. Here, we're gonna be utilizing a knee and hip position, but we can also just go double knees. It's the same exact idea. This just allows us to be ambidextrous with our attacks. So what I'm doing here is I'm pushing one of his knees down to the floor, and as I walk towards that side, I'm opening up his knee and elbow space by redirecting that frame. So I'm pushing his knee behind me. We're not necessarily trying to pin that knee onto the mat. This would be more knee cut position here. I'm simply trying to push his knee and then redirect it underneath me. As I do this, if we rotate a little bit here, as I do this, what am I doing? I am opening up his knee and elbow space. That means I'm opening the door for my head and shoulder to come in. So as I push this knee backwards, my head and my shoulders will come in, and I'll drop down nice and controlled. Notice I'm not throwing my weight, so I'm not just suddenly throwing myself on top of him. I'm nice and smooth, moving and connecting to him, okay? It's like I'm trying to lock myself onto him as opposed to kind of throwing myself at a wall. Again, you can do this with many different grip setups. You can also just go hands on the knees here, but same thing. I move to one side, I open, and I come in. Similar to the leg drag, we're utilizing the head and the shoulder as the leading edge of this guard pass. So I'm not using my chest to pass his guard, right? I'm not doing this. Because you can see I'm providing him with such a wide surface area, it's very easy for him to frame off. So think of yourself like an arrowhead. I want to go to a point, the point being your head. So when I'm here, as I start to open up that knee elbow space, look, my head and shoulders are dropping down. That's the thing that I'm using to intersect the knee elbow connection. Now, how does this connect with that closed guard break? You may have seen that when you're performing the closed guard break, you're pushing one of their legs down to the mat. Perfect. That's the leg that we're going to start to swipe underneath us to pass. Now, take your time. I want you to really focus on trying to create the correct angle first and then pass with the Toreando. Let's see that from a side view. So I'm going to perform the closed guard break. So I'm pushing this knee down. So look, as I push this knee down, I'm going to put my hand on his hip, or you can grab onto their knees. It's up to you. But I'm going to move myself outside of his legs. Okay? See, I'm no longer in between his legs here. I'm moving to the outside of his legs. I'm now going to push his knee underneath me. I'm also creating a strong frame here on this top leg. I'm trying to stiff arm this top leg away from me as well. Here, my head and shoulder come down, and I close into the position. So I've accessed these levers to turn his guard away, and I'm boxing his hips in with my body. So I keep my head down low. Remember, we're not running to the head right now. What's the first layer of the onion that we are trying to win? The hips, okay? I've beaten the feet, I've beaten the knees, now I'm going for the hips. I get right here, okay? Let's see that from the rear. So slow motion, I'm controlling the belt. I come up, I'll push this knee down. Look, as I break the guard, I'm immediately moving off to that side. I'm gonna start to redirect, push that knee under. I wanna start to push his knees away from me. So I bring my chest in. See how I'm very controlled? I'm not suddenly just plopping myself down. I'm in control of my movement here. Settle, control the hips. My head is down. We've talked a lot about how if our head is up, it provides a good platform for them to push off. So my head is down, okay? When we do this Toreando, I need it to be slow like that. Remember that intensity thing we were talking about in the beginning. Don't just wildly throw yourself into this pass. Really slow, okay?
To do this one effectively, the bottom person must give good feedback. It'll be a huge false positive if I do not lock my body and follow him with my entire guard. So it would look like this. If I was doing it white belt style, after he stands up and breaks open, white belt style is like my legs are slightly resistive, but my head and shoulders are just totally flat. This is not an accurate reaction. This is not a good reaction, and I am practicing poorly for myself, and my partner is not getting as good of a practice either. So look, my head and shoulders are off the ground, as always when playing the guard, and as he moves, I follow him. I want to keep him in my headlights, and I want to keep him in front of my hands and my chest. Now, as he pushes through, I can still try to frame a little bit, but I'm not going to super fight, right? I want him to feel the experience of turning my hips away, not just flailing my legs around, okay? So I'm not just aiming my legs over or letting him do whatever he wants to my legs as I lay flat.
All right, guys, remember, it's important to give those correct reactions. I'll show one more time slow motion without talking. I'll put the whole thing together. We'll do it from the front view again. Okay. Nice and smooth. Here we go. Okay, so we're going opening the closed guard, straight to the Toreando. All right, guys, again, play around with those grips. You can go knee and hip. You can go double knees. You can grab the pants too, like the inside of the pants. All right, that's fine. It's good to have those options available. All right, any questions? Yeah. Any differences like between where I place the hands? Oh, no. Well, I mean, the main difference would be if I'm holding both their knees, I'm kind of stiff-arming that leg away from me as I come down here.
Asking why would you do one or the other?
Right? So that's the main difference between. This one, I'm just holding his hip. I'm using my elbow to kind of block here. The preference, though, is up to you, right? You wouldn't necessarily, right, whatever option works best in the moment. Some people like to just do one. Some people like to do the other. Coach Gene's, Professor Gene's option is always here with the knee and hip. This is his variation. I like pant grips personally, so I almost always use the pant grip option. Cool. Does that answer your question, Gabe? Okay. All right, guys, let's try it. 1, 2. So I just wanted to conclude our lesson, talk about a couple things here, and then we're going to move into specific training. So tonight, our focus was opening the closed guard. We just added in that Toreando pass because it does connect very nicely for as soon as we push the knee down, we just redirect and go right into Toreando. If you'd like a little bit more focused attention to that Toreando, we have an entire lesson of that, just the Toreando, an entire lesson just dedicated to that on our YouTube channel. So you guys can check that out there too. It goes into really great detail about the Toreando pass. I think it's important to remember that passing is difficult. It requires us to really think and move effectively at the same time, right? You can't just sit there and think. You have to be constantly moving and thinking on the fly. It's like dancing, right? I'm just constantly moving, good footwork. One thing that I noticed that I think will help people is as soon as I break that guard open, remember we're pushing down and then we're redirecting. So my hand placement would go from a frame on the top of the knee to push his leg down to a frame on the side or underneath to redirect it backwards. So I'm going down and then I flip my hand just slightly here to redirect it underneath me. That helps us to really control that leg. So I push down, I circle out and come back here. Again, control the legs. Control the legs. So a good drill that I think you guys could do, like before class or just at open mat or something like that, is have the closed guard position here. Okay, break the closed guard and just immediately move to a side. Don't worry about the Toreando, right? Just move to the side. That way you're immediately creating that offensive movement of I break the guard open and I'm getting to an angle. If I sit head on with them, that plays into their position. That plays into the guard. If I get to a side here, now I'm attacking, okay? So that's a good thing to do. Break the guard, immediately get to an angle, right? So let's go ahead and move into specific training, guys. Grab some water if you need. On to 1, 2.